She was sent as a joke to the ranch, but Silent Cowboy put his coat on her shoulders and it was said that Emma had been sent as a joke. The old ranch, nestled on the edge of the dusty plains, wasn't a place for someone like her. She had soft hands, city-bred manners, and dreams too big for a world this rough. The men at the ranch knew that the city girls came out west for adventure or maybe to escape something, but they always turned back. It was just a matter of time. So when Emma's stagecoach arrived and she stepped out, suitcase in hand, the ranch hands looked at each other and laughed under their breath. They exchanged knowing glances, well aware that she wouldn't last the day. The foreman, Cole, had the loudest laugh. He was the kind of man who spoke with the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. He had seen women like her before. Fragile, naive, and out of place in the world of sweat, blood, and cattle. He stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching her with a grin that never reached his eyes. "She won't last 5 minutes out here," Cole murmured to one of the men. Emma barely noticed. She was too busy taking in the land. The endless horizon stretching before her. The tall, wild grass swaying in the breeze, and the rugged wooden house that would be her home, at least for the time being. She didn't know why she had agreed to come here. Maybe it was the promise of independence, or maybe she was just tired of being caged in the city's constant hum. What she didn't expect was the silence. Out here, no one spoke much. The wind, the crackling of the firewood, the distant moo of a cow, that was the soundtrack of life on the ranch. And then, there was him. The Silent Cowboy. He wasn't introduced to her. In fact, no one really talked about him. The ranchers all referred to him in whispers, mostly in admiration and fear. He worked harder than anyone. He repaired fences, tended to horses, and helped round up cattle. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his voice seemed to carry the weight of the world. He was a man of few words, and a man who carried more scars than any of them could fathom. The first time Emma saw him, she was standing at the edge of the barn, watching as he rode by on a horse, moving with the grace and power of someone who had been born to the saddle. He didn't even glance in her direction, but Emma felt a shiver crawl up her spine, as though the air itself had been charged with his presence. Over the next few days, she tried to keep her distance. She focused on the work she had to do, sweeping the porch, feeding the chickens, and attempting to milk a cow, an attempt that was, to say the least, unsuccessful. Emma wasn't used to hard work, but she refused to be the joke everyone expected. She had come here to prove something, to herself, at least. And then there was that moment, the moment that changed everything. It was a cold evening. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The men were gathered around a fire, laughing and drinking their whiskey. The noise, the laughter, it all felt too much. Emma retreated from the warmth of their company and stood by the barn, feeling the cool wind brush against her skin. The cowboy appeared, almost as if he had materialized out of the night itself. He was leaning against the fence, his back straight, his eyes watching the stars above. He didn't seem to notice Emma at first, and she didn't dare disturb him. But then, as the wind kicked up and she pulled her coat tighter around her, he turned. His eyes met hers, and in that moment, there was something in his gaze, something soft yet unreadable. Without a word, he moved toward her, his boots crunching in the dirt. He stopped just short of her, and without a single word, he took off his coat. It was thick, worn leather that looked like it had seen more than a few storms. The coat smelled of tobacco, horses, and earth. Without saying a thing, he placed it over her shoulders. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had expected him to say something, to make some kind of gruff comment, maybe to laugh at her discomfort in the cold. But no, he simply looked at her, his expression unreadable. Thank you," she managed to stammer, her voice soft against the howling wind. He nodded once, then turned and walked back toward the barn, his figure disappearing into the shadows. Emma stood there for a long time, the weight of his coat heavy on her shoulders. She was confused. She had never met anyone like him. Quiet, distant, yet somehow protective. The ranch was filled with whispers of him, and every time she passed someone, they would give her knowing looks. It wasn't just his silence that intrigued the others, it was his past. No one knew where he came from, not even the men who worked alongside him. He was a ghost, a shadow in the daylight, but always present. The next morning, as Emma went about her chores, she found herself thinking more and more about him. He didn't speak to her, but she couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her, his eyes always on her as if waiting for something, waiting for her to break, maybe. The men still joked about her, about how long she would last. They didn't take her seriously, and Emma couldn't blame them. She had come from the city with no real skills, no real experience, and no clue about the harshness of the land. But she wasn't going to quit. Not yet. That night, as she prepared to return the coat, she found something inside one of the pockets, something small, folded neatly. It was a piece of paper. The writing was rough, uneven, and barely legible, but Emma could make out the words. "Don't trust the foreman." The note was short, cryptic, but Emma felt her heart race as she read it. Who would have left this for her? Why? And what did it mean? Before she could consider it further, she heard footsteps behind her. She spun around, her heart leaping in her chest, but it was just the cowboy again. His eyes locked onto hers for a brief moment, then moved to the note in her hand. He said nothing but reached forward and took the coat from her shoulders. She wanted to say something, to ask him about the note, but the words caught in her throat. With a soft grunt, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there with more questions than answers. She spent the rest of the night wondering about the foreman, the man who had been so dismissive of her. What did he have to do with the note? Was he involved in something darker than Emma had realized? But more than anything, she wondered about the cowboy, the silent man who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. What did he know that no one else did? And why had he given her the coat? The next morning, the wind howled through the ranch as Emma worked, her mind reeling with the mystery that seemed to grow bigger with every passing day. But as the sun set and the shadows grew long, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something was going to change, and the ranch would never be the same again. The morning after the warning note, the ranch looked the same dusty air, the same tired sunrise breaking over the horizon, the same restless horses snorting in the paddock. Yet for Emma, everything had changed. Every creak of wood, every low murmur from the men, every look from the foreman felt sharper now, heavier, as if the whole place was holding its breath. She couldn't stop thinking about those words. Don't trust the foreman. The note burned in her apron pocket like a secret flame. Who had written it? The handwriting was rough, the letters uneven, the message short and deliberate. She didn't need to be told twice to suspect who it came from, the silent cowboy. He was the only one who'd shown her any kindness. But why warn her? What danger could possibly exist in a place like this? By midday, Emma was sweeping the porch when she heard footsteps crunching behind her. She turned to see Cole, the foreman, standing with his hands on his hips. His smile was thin, too smooth to be real. "Working hard, Miss City Girl," he said, his voice calm but with a sneer hidden under every word. "I'm just doing my job," Emma replied, her eyes on the broom, keeping her tone steady. "Job? Huh," he chuckled. "Don't think I've ever seen anyone sweep dust off the dirt before." The men nearby laughed. Emma tried to ignore them. Cole stepped closer, his boots creaking on the boards. "Tell me something," he said softly, leaning in. "Why'd they send you all the way out here? The boss doesn't usually take in city girls unless there's a reason." Emma's hand tightened around the broom. I needed work. That's all." He stared at her for a moment, his smile fading. We'll see about that." Then he turned and walked off toward the stables, barking orders at the ranch hands as if nothing had happened. But Emma's heart was pounding. There was something in his tone, something that made her skin crawl. That evening, while everyone gathered in the main house for supper, Emma lingered by the barn. The air was cooler now, and the wind carried the faint scent of hay and rain. She saw him again, the cowboy. He was tending to his horse, brushing its mane with slow, steady strokes. The lantern light cast soft shadows across his face, highlighting the quiet intensity in his eyes. She hesitated before stepping closer. "It was you, wasn't it?" He didn't look up. "What? The note?" she whispered. "Don't trust the foreman. You wrote it." Finally, he stopped brushing and turned to face her. For a long moment, he said nothing. His silence was almost louder than words. "Why?" she asked. "What did you mean?" He took a slow breath, his gaze flickering toward the ranch house where the lights glowed through the windows. "Because you're not safe," he said finally, his voice deep and gravelly. Emma frowned. "What are you talking about? Why would the foreman?" But before she could finish, a door slammed open across the yard. Cole's voice boomed through the twilight. "Hey, you two." Emma jumped. The cowboy just turned his head slightly, watching as the foreman stomped toward them. Cole's eyes flicked between them, and his grin returned, but this time it was colder. "Didn't know we hired you to chat under the stars, sweetheart." Emma swallowed. "I was just asking about chores," the cowboy interrupted, his tone even. Cole raised an eyebrow, clearly not used to the cowboy speaking at all. "That right? Yeah." His voice didn't waver. "She's new. I was making sure she knows what needs doing." Cole smirked. "That's mighty generous of you. But I don't recall telling you to play teacher." The air between them was thick. The two men stared at each other, the tension sharp enough to cut. Finally, Cole turned back toward the house. "Keep your mouth shut, cowboy," he said over his shoulder. "Or I'll find a way to make you." When he was gone, Emma looked at the cowboy, her chest tight. "Why does he hate you?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed fixed on the distant lights of the house. "Because I know things he wishes I didn't." Emma felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Like what?" "That man's got more than cattle on his books," he said quietly. "You stay away from him, you hear? Don't be alone with him." Before she could respond, he walked past her, his boots heavy in the dirt. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The walls of the small cabin creaked with the wind. Outside, an owl hooted somewhere in the dark. Every shadow seemed alive. She replayed the cowboy's words in her mind, over and over. "You're not safe." At dawn, she decided to find out the truth for herself. She rose early, wrapped her shawl tight, and slipped out quietly. The yard was still and gray, the first hints of morning just beginning to light the sky. She headed toward the barn, hoping to catch a glimpse of the cowboy, maybe get more answers. But before she reached the stables, she heard voices. "Cole again. Rancher doesn't know who she is yet," he was saying. His tone was low, dangerous. "Once he finds out, it'll be too late." Emma froze behind a stack of hay bales. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure they'd hear it. A second voice, one of the other men, asked, "You sure it's her?" "Positive," Cole replied. "I saw the papers myself. She's not just some worker. She's his blood." Emma's stomach turned. His blood. She wanted to move, to run, but her feet wouldn't obey. Cole continued, "Once we're done here, this ranch is mine. And no little city girl's gonna stand in my way." Emma covered her mouth to stop a gasp. The wooden board beneath her creaked. Cole spun around. "Who's there?" Emma bolted. "Hey!" he shouted, footsteps pounding behind her. She ran out of the barn, her heart hammering. The wind whipped through her hair as she darted toward the open fields. Her boots slipped in the dirt, her breath burning in her lungs. Behind her, Cole's voice roared through the air. "You can't hide, girl." Just as she reached the fence line, a shadow stepped out in front of her, the cowboy. "Emma," he barked, grabbing her by the arm. "What happened?" He knows who I am." She gasped. He said, "I'm the rancher's blood." The cowboy's jaw tightened. Then it started. "What?" Before he could answer, a gunshot split the morning air. The bullet struck the fence post inches from Emma's head, splintering the wood. The cowboy yanked her down to the ground, shielding her with his body. Another shot rang out. "Run!" he growled. Now. She didn't hesitate. They sprinted together through the open field, the grass whipping against their legs. Behind them, Cole's shouts echoed, followed by the thunder of more gunfire. Emma stumbled, but the cowboy caught her, his grip firm and steady. They reached the creek at the far edge of the property and ducked behind a cluster of rocks. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's hands trembled. "Why is he doing this? What did I do?" The cowboy looked at her, his expression hard. "You didn't do anything. But your father did." Her breath caught. "My father's dead." He shook his head slowly. "That's what they wanted you to believe." Emma stared at him, disbelief warring with fear. "What are you saying?" Before he could answer, the distant sound of horses broke the silence again. Cole and his men were searching. The cowboy looked toward the horizon, then back at her. "We can't stay here. You want to know the truth? Then you'll have to trust me. Emma's voice quivered. Why should I? Because, he said, his eyes steady and full of something she couldn't name. I'm the only one left who knows what really happened to your father. The wind picked up, rustling the tall grass around them. In the distance, thunder rumbled, echoing across the plains like a warning. Emma looked at the cowboy, her heart pounding with fear and confusion. What do you mean? What happened to him? He adjusted his hat, glancing back toward the ranch where the foreman's men searched with torches. Not here, he said. I'll tell you everything, once we make it out alive. And as the storm gathered over the horizon, Emma realized her life on the ranch, the place she was sent as a joke, was only just beginning to reveal its dark, buried secrets. The storm broke before dawn, swallowing the plains in a curtain of rain and thunder. Emma and the cowboy huddled beneath a low bluff, their clothes soaked, their breaths clouding the cold morning air. Lightning split the sky, lighting his face for an instant, calm, fierce, and unyielding. She could barely think. Her mind swirled with the cowboy's last words. I'm the only one who knows what really happened to your father. Tell me, she demanded, clutching her shawl tighter. You said my father's alive. What did you mean? The cowboy looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Your father, Samuel Graves, owned this land. He built this ranch with his own hands. Cole worked for him back then. But when your mother passed, your father lost himself in grief. He left for a cattle drive one season, and never came back. Everyone thought he'd died in a storm. Emma's heart raced. But he didn't. No, the cowboy said grimly. Cole made sure folks thought he did. He forged papers, took control of the ranch, and spread word that your father's wagon had been found washed away. But I was there that night. Your father didn't die in that storm. He was shot. Emma's breath hitched. Shot. He nodded. And not by strangers. By Cole himself. He wanted the land, the money, everything. But your father survived the first shot. I found him bleeding near the canyon, hiding in the dark. He made me swear to protect you, his daughter, and keep the truth buried until the time was right. Emma stared at him, her pulse thundering in her ears. You knew my father. I rode for him once, the cowboy said softly. He saved my life years ago. I owed him everything. That's why I stayed on this cursed land. Waiting, watching, until you came back. Lightning flashed again, and through the sheets of rain, Emma saw the weight of sorrow in his eyes. Her voice trembled. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wasn't sure you even knew who you were. Cole's been watching, waiting for any sign that the truth might surface. If he knew you were Graves' daughter, he'd kill you too. Emma's hands shook. He already knows. The cowboy's jaw tightened. Then we're out of time. A distant shout tore through the roar of rain. Cole's men. They were close. Torches flickered in the distance, weaving through the storm like angry spirits. The cowboy rose, checking his revolver. We ride east. There's an old line shack near the ridge. We can rest there before sunrise. Emma hesitated. And after that, he met her eyes. After that, we end this. They rode through the storm, the horses fighting the mud and wind. The land stretched endlessly before them, open, wild, merciless. But in the heart of the storm, Emma felt something change inside her. Fear turned to fire. By the time they reached the shack, dawn was a pale smear across the sky. The rain slowed to a drizzle. The cowboy dismounted, scanning the horizon. We'll be safe here for a few hours. Emma followed him inside. The place smelled of dust and old wood. A single lantern flickered weakly on a crate. She sank down on a blanket, exhausted. I can't believe this. All this time, I thought I was just a servant. Just another pair of hands. The cowboy knelt before her. You're not. You're the rightful heir of Graves' ranch. And Cole's known it for years. A crack of thunder rolled across the sky. No, not thunder. Gunfire. The cowboy's head snapped up. They found us. Before Emma could move, the window shattered. A bullet whistled through the shack, slamming into the wall inches from her head. Down. The cowboy barked. He grabbed her arm and pulled her behind an overturned table. Outside, men shouted, boots splashing through the mud. Another shot rang out, then another. The cowboy returned fire, calm and deadly. Each shot was measured, precise. But there were too many of them. Emma clutched her shawl, her heart racing. There's too many. He cut her off. Listen to me. There's a trapdoor under the floorboards. Your father built it. Crawl through. Head for the creek. I'll hold them off. No, she cried. You'll be killed. He looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, she saw the truth in his eyes. This wasn't just about duty. It was about something deeper. Something he'd been fighting to hide. I've already made peace with death, Emma, he said quietly. But not with letting Cole win. Tears blurred her vision. I can't leave you. He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. You have to. You're your father's daughter, strong enough to survive. The door burst open. Cole's men stormed in. The cowboy turned, firing again. Emma crawled toward the trapdoor, forcing it open. Cold air rushed up from the darkness below. Go, he shouted. She hesitated one last second, then dropped through the opening, the floor slamming shut above her. Gunfire roared. She ran through the narrow passage, heart pounding, mud splashing beneath her hands and knees. Behind her, the sounds of battle faded, until a single shot echoed louder than the rest. Then silence. Emma froze. No, she whispered. She crawled faster, pushing through until she reached the creek. Rainwater streamed down her face as she looked back toward the ridge. The shack was burning, flames devouring the old wood. Cole emerged from the fire, limping, his face twisted in rage. He saw her. Think you can run from me, girl? He shouted, raising his gun. Emma stumbled back, slipping on the wet stones. She had no weapon, nowhere to hide. Cole took aim, and then a sound cracked through the storm. A gunshot. Cole's eyes went wide. He stumbled forward, clutching his chest, and fell face first into the mud. Emma turned. The cowboy stood behind her, bleeding, his revolver still smoking. He dropped to his knees. Emma rushed to him. No, stay with me, she cried, holding his face in her trembling hands. He smiled weakly. Told you, I'd keep you safe. Please, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Don't go. We can start over. We can rebuild. He shook his head slowly. The land's yours now. Graves Ranch belongs to you. Promise me you'll make it right. For your father. For all of us. She nodded through the tears. I promise. His hand brushed her cheek, then fell still. The storm faded into silence. Only the wind moved now, whispering through the grass like a prayer. Days later, when the sun returned to the plains, Emma buried him beneath the old oak near the creek, the same place her father once called sacred ground. She marked his grave with a simple wooden cross, carved with one word, loyalty. And then she rode back to the ranch. The men who had followed Cole fled when they learned the truth. The townsfolk soon came, offering their help. Emma stood on the porch of her father's house, her house now, and looked out over the endless fields of gold. The Wild West was a land built on blood, betrayal, and dust. But it was also a land of redemption. And though the cowboy's voice no longer echoed in the wind, Emma could almost hear him still, low, steady, and certain. Greater than, keep riding, Emma. The West remembers the brave. As the sun set behind the hills, she saddled her horse and rode out once more. Not as a servant, not as a frightened girl, but as the rightful owner of the
Graves Ranch, and the last daughter of the wild frontier. Thank you so much for watching this story till the very end. Your support means more than words can ever say. If you felt the depth of this journey, don't forget to give it a like, share it with someone who needs it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Together, we'll keep bringing powerful stories to life, and your presence here makes all the difference.